Albert Einstein, one of the most respected and influential scientists in history, is best known for his theory of relativity and his iconic equation, EMC. However, despite his many achievements and contributions to our understanding of the natural world, he had his own limits and refused to accept some truths about the universe. One such truth was the expanding universe. Einstein's resistance to this idea highlights both the power and the limitations of human reason. Join us as we look at why Einstein rejected the truth, how his views evolved over time, and what this tells us about the nature of scientific discovery. In the early 20th century, the prevailing view of the universe was that it was static and unchanging. This view was based on a combination of religious beliefs and philosophical ideas that had been around for centuries. Many people believed that the universe had been created by a divine being, and that it was therefore perfect and eternal. However, Einstein's theory of general relativity suggested that the universe should be either expanding or contracting. This was a radical idea that challenged the prevailing view and went against his own intuition. But when faced with evidence that the universe was indeed expanding, he eventually came to accept it. One of the reasons why Einstein initially rejected the idea of an expanding universe was because it went against his intuition and the intuition of most scientists of his time. Einstein was used to thinking of the universe as a clockwork mechanism, a perfectly balanced system that would run smoothly and predictably forever. The idea of a dynamic and chaotic universe was unfamiliar and unsettling to him. Additionally, there was no observational evidence to support the idea of an expanding universe during Einstein's early career. The tools and technology that were available at the time were not advanced enough to detect such a phenomenon. Another reason why Einstein rejected the idea of an expanding universe was because he believed that such a discovery would undermine the foundations of his own theory of general relativity. Einstein's theory of general relativity was one of the most important scientific discoveries of the 20th century. It revolutionized our understanding of gravity and the structure of the universe. Einstein had put his reputation and career on the line to develop this theory, and he was naturally reluctant to abandon or modify it. If the universe was expanding, it would mean that his equations were wrong or incomplete. This would be a blow to his ego and could potentially damage his legacy. However, as new evidence emerged and other scientists built upon his work, Einstein eventually came to accept the truth about the expanding universe. In 1929, Edwin Hubble, an American astronomer, made a groundbreaking discovery that provided the first observational evidence for an expanding universe. Hubble was studying distant galaxies, and he noticed that the light from these galaxies was shifted towards the red end of the spectrum. This phenomenon is known as redshift, and it indicates that the galaxies were moving away from us. By measuring the degree of redshift, Hubble was able to calculate the velocity of these galaxies, and he found that the farther away a galaxy was, the faster it was receding. This discovery provided strong evidence that the universe was expanding. Despite this evidence, Einstein still resisted the idea of an expanding universe. He continued to believe that the universe was static and unchanging. However, in 1931, Einstein published a paper in which he acknowledged the evidence for an expanding universe and proposed a modification to his theory of general relativity that would account for it. In this paper, Einstein introduced a new constant into his equations, known as the cosmological constant. This constant was represented by the letter lambda, and it was designed to counteract the effects of gravity and keep the universe static. By adding this constant to his equations, Einstein was able to make his theory of general relativity fit with the observed data. Although Einstein's modification of his theory allowed him to explain the observed evidence for an expanding universe, it was not a complete explanation. Einstein was still uncomfortable with the idea of a dynamic universe, and he continued to search for a more fundamental explanation. Despite his efforts, Einstein was not able to resolve this issue during his lifetime. The story of Einstein's resistance to the idea of an expanding universe is a fascinating example of the power and the limitations of human reason. Einstein was one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, and his contributions to our understanding of the natural world are immeasurable. However, despite his brilliance, he was not immune to the biases and limitations of human thinking. Einstein's resistance to the idea of an expanding universe was driven by a number of factors, including his own intuition, his desire to preserve the foundations of his own theory, and the lack of observational evidence at the time. However, as new evidence emerged and his colleagues built upon his work, Einstein eventually came to accept the truth about the expanding universe. This story also highlights the importance of intellectual humility and the willingness to change one's mind in the face of new evidence. Science is not a static body of knowledge, but a dynamic and evolving process. It requires scientists to be open to new ideas and to be willing to revise their theories in light of new evidence. Einstein's story is a reminder of this and an inspiration to scientists and non-scientists alike. It shows that even the greatest minds can be wrong, and that it's okay to change your mind when faced with new evidence. It also shows that intellectual humility and a willingness to learn are essential qualities for anyone who wants to understand the world around them. In conclusion, Albert Einstein's resistance to the idea of an expanding universe was a fascinating episode in the history of scientific discovery. Despite his initial reluctance, Einstein eventually came to accept the truth about the expanding universe, demonstrating the power of new evidence and the importance of intellectual humility. His contributions to our understanding of the natural world are immeasurable, and his story continues to inspire scientists and thinkers of all generations. Whether we're talking about his famous quote about imagination, or his thoughts on politics, religion, or his views on humanity, it's clear that Albert Einstein was a man ahead of his time, and his insights remain relevant even today. If you liked this video, then check out another video where we explore the shocking fact that Einstein failed his college entrance exam, or check out another video where we look at Einstein's secret to genius. Thanks for watching.